They thought they could dump me 3 days before my pension vested. But I made a call that shattered everything they built. My name is Natalie Price. I'm 60 years old, and last Friday, I was fired from the only company I've ever worked for, Stratwell Dynamics, a private defense contractor based in Richmond, Virginia. I'd been there 29 years and 362 days. Not that I was counting, until it mattered. That afternoon started like any other, until I was called into the 19th floor office of Brent Holloway, the new VP of Operations. The view from his window was flawless, unlike the tension in the air. His assistant didn't offer coffee, no chit-chat. Just a stiff nod and a closed door behind me. Brent leaned back in his ergonomic chair, hands folded. "Natalie," he said, his tone almost rehearsed. "Your contributions to Stratwell have been appreciated, but due to restructuring, we're terminating your position, effective immediately." I blinked. 3 days before my pension vests? He didn't flinch, just slid a manila folder across the table. "This is your severance package." I didn't touch it. "We just posted record profits." "Budget constraints," he replied coldly. There was a camera in the corner. I knew this was being recorded, so I stayed composed. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said, my voice calm. Then I stood, adjusted my coat, and walked out of that glass box without giving Brent the satisfaction of a reaction. Back at my desk, HR was already waiting. Sharon, the one person I thought might look me in the eye, wouldn't even meet my gaze. As I packed, I took only what mattered. My late husband's photo. A tiny bonsai tree my daughter gave me on my 50th birthday. And the brass plaque that read, "Natalie Price, Director of Regulatory Compliance, 25 years of service." No one else spoke. Security walked me out the same lobby I'd once been applauded through during a company-wide compliance summit. I didn't cry, but I also didn't say goodbye. In the parking lot, I sat in my car, unmoving. I stared at the Stratwell emblem on the security badge I'd just turned in. 3 decades of integrity, loyalty, quiet sacrifices, gone. But what they didn't know is that I'd been preparing for this. The past 4 years, I'd been noticing red flags, accounting anomalies, procurement shortcuts, quiet changes to regulatory reporting. I'd reported everyone through the official channels. Gotten silence, or worse, warnings to stay in my lane. So I documented it all. I didn't do it to be vindictive. I did it because my gut said something bigger was going on. And now, with 3 days left before my pension would have vested, they'd thrown me away. But here's the thing. My brother-in-law, Michael, isn't just family. He's a senior investigator at the SEC. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Michael, SEC. My finger hovered. Then I tapped call. He answered on the second ring. "What's going on?" he asked, instantly sensing the edge in my voice. "You know that thing we used to joke about? Me being the one honest person in a corrupt company?" "Yeah." "Well, I just got fired, 3 days before my pension vests. And I think they've been hiding something big." I could hear him sit up straighter. "Talk." That night, we spoke for nearly 3 hours. I sent over preliminary documents, emails, spreadsheets, internal memos I'd copied and encrypted. Michael didn't mince words. "Natalie, what you have here? This isn't just a layoff. It's retaliation, and it looks like full-scale fraud." He advised me not to sign anything, not to respond to their emails, and above all, to keep everything secure. "You've got whistleblower protection now," he said. "And if this plays out the way it looks, Stratwell's in serious trouble." The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. My career had been built on catching mistakes, on never looking the other way. And Stratwell had just made their biggest one, thinking I'd go quietly. I began organizing everything, hundreds of pages, digital files, voice memos. I'd even printed and indexed key items. I made 3 identical packages, one for the SEC, one for my personal attorney, and one for insurance. Then the phone calls started, first from HR, then Brent, then Stratwell's legal counsel. Natalie, we just need your signature. It's a standard exit agreement. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Their desperation said everything. By Saturday evening, they'd hand-delivered another version of the severance agreement, this time with a note, final opportunity. Sign by Monday morning or forfeit all benefits. They were bluffing, but it told me something important. They were scared. That night, my daughter Layla called. She lives in Chicago, working in nonprofit law. She knew something was wrong the moment I answered. You sound different. Mom, what's going on? They fired me, I said plainly. What? You're 3 days from retirement. I know, but I've got it handled. There was a long silence. Then, do you want me to come down? No, baby. I need you safe. This might get ugly. She didn't argue. She knows me too well. Sunday, I spent in silence, reviewing my files, rechecking dates, making sure everything was airtight, because on Monday, everything would change. At 8 a.m., I walked into the Richmond Federal Building with my briefcase in hand. I met Michael in the lobby. He looked serious, but proud. You ready? He asked. I nodded. Let's do this. We took the elevator to the SEC's regional office. Inside, I met 2 enforcement attorneys and a forensic accountant. They walked me through the process. Once I handed over my documentation, there'd be no turning back. I'm not turning back, I said. For 3 hours, I told my story, from the first discrepancies to the retaliatory emails. I showed them everything. At the end, the lead attorney leaned back and said, "This isn't just retaliation. This is systemic fraud. And the way they timed your termination? That's the smoking gun." I left that building knowing Stratwell's days of secrecy were over. But the real fireworks hadn't even started. By the time I got home Monday afternoon, the first domino had already tipped. My phone lit up with a voicemail from Sharon in HR. Her voice was shaking. Natalie, something's happening. The board just called an emergency session. Brent's locked in his office and legal's scrambling. Are you okay? I didn't answer her call, but I smiled. I was more than okay. At 6:42 p.m., I got another call, this time from an unfamiliar number. Miss Price, the voice said stiffly. This is Harold Dyson, chairman of Stratwell's board. I believe there's been a serious misunderstanding, and we'd like to meet with you, perhaps tomorrow morning. His tone was all forced calm and veiled panic. I think that would be best done through counsel, I replied. And I believe the SEC will want to be involved. Click. Dead silence. Then he stammered something about getting back to me through my lawyer. Exactly what I wanted. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of fear, but because of everything I'd known but ignored. All the late-night emails that didn't feel right. The sudden promotion of Brent, who had 0 background in compliance but unlimited confidence. The contracts I was asked not to review. I used to think it was just bureaucracy. Now I knew it was a cover-up. Tuesday morning, Michael called with an update from inside the SEC. They've already contacted Stratwell's general counsel, he said. We're going full investigation. You did the right thing. Within hours, I received a formal letter rescinding my termination. They were placing me on administrative leave, with full benefits, while they reviewed the circumstances. Transparent damage control, but legally important. It meant they were already trying to clean their tracks. By Wednesday, headlines started trickling in. Defense contractor under federal investigation. Stratwell faces SEC probe over financial irregularities. Local business channels picked up the story. Stock dipped 7% by mid-afternoon. Nothing catastrophic yet. But the real quake was still coming. That evening, I met with my attorney, Evelyn Dawson. Smart, steady, and direct. The kind of person who made CEOs sweat in deposition chairs. "Natalie," she said, closing the folder of evidence I'd given her. "They're not going to survive this without casualties." "Brent Holloway?" I asked. "Definitely," she replied. "But he didn't create this alone." I leaned back. "I know. Because here's the truth I hadn't shared yet, not even with Michael. 3 years ago, I stumbled across something strange during a routine review of subcontractor files. A company called Pinnacle Core Technologies had billed Stratwell for systems integration consulting. It was vague, overpriced, and repetitive. Every quarter, the amounts were just under audit thresholds. That's what raised my eyebrows. I'd flagged it in a memo. But nothing happened. When I followed up, Brent, then just a special project liaison, told me it was above my clearance level. That was the first red flag. So I did what I always did. I documented it, copied the files, stored them in a secure backup. Later, I learned Pinnacle Core was registered to a shell LLC based in Delaware, one owned by a man named Curtis Holloway, Brent's cousin. That was when I knew. Brent didn't just execute the fraud, he designed it. Back then, I didn't take it public. I thought I could fix it from inside. But now, the game had changed. Thursday, I met with Stratwell's board under legal supervision. Evelyn sat beside me, calm as a glacier. The board looked like a room full of ghosts. No Brent, no legal threats, just tight faces and darting eyes. "Miss Price," the chairman began, "we want to express our regret for how your termination was handled. We were misinformed." "By whom?" Evelyn asked. The chairman hesitated. "Vice President Holloway. And you're claiming no one else on this board reviewed the procurement anomalies Miss Price reported 3 years ago?" She continued. Silence. I spoke for the first time. "You ignored it then, but you're listening now." One member cleared his throat. "We're hoping you'll cooperate with our internal investigation." "I'll cooperate with the SEC," I corrected. "If your interests align with the truth, great. If not, I suggest you step aside." Meeting over. Friday morning, the company issued a public statement. Brent Holloway was placed on indefinite leave. By noon, Stratwell stock plunged another 14%. Investors were fleeing. The Defense Department announced it was reviewing contracts and compliance certifications with the company. I had become, in their words, the central figure in a compliance dispute. But in truth, I was the witness to a crime scene. Over the weekend, Evelyn and I prepped the next round of disclosures. Because what I'd turned over so far? That was just the first layer. The real proof, the kind that shows intention and long-term fraud, that was deeper. Password-protected folders, encrypted drives, conversations recorded during off-the-record meetings. On Monday morning, the second wave hit. The SEC issued subpoenas to 3 senior executives. The DOJ joined the investigation. Stratwell stock halted trading briefly before stabilizing. My inbox was flooded with news interview requests. I declined all of them. I wasn't doing this for attention. I was doing this because I had been forced to choose, accept the abuse quietly or expose it, no matter the cost. That night, Layla called again. "Mom, are you okay?" I paused. Number. "But I'm doing what's right, and that matters more." She didn't say anything, just breathed softly on the other end of the line. And then, "I'm proud of you." I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't cry. I didn't have time to cry, because the house of cards was collapsing faster than anyone expected. By Wednesday, Brent was subpoenaed. The chairman of the board resigned due to health reasons. The company's CFO was placed on leave. Stratwell's new interim CEO, a woman I'd trained a decade ago. Quiet, sharp, and most importantly, honest. She called me the next day. "Natalie," she said softly, "they want to settle." I raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" She exhaled. "They want to restore your pension, offer a compensation package, and publicly recognize your role in correcting the course." I leaned back. Now they wanted my silence. But what they didn't understand is that I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth in full daylight. "Tell them," I said, "to write a check. Then open the books. All the way." By Thursday morning, Stratwell Dynamics was a company in free fall. And the thing about corporate collapses? They don't happen in silence. I woke up to news alerts. SEC expands investigation into Stratwell. Whistleblower allegations uncover broader scheme. They weren't naming names yet, but everyone inside the building knew who had started it all, and I wasn't hiding anymore. The phone rang at 9:04 a.m. Evelyn picked up on the second ring. She didn't say hello. Just, "They know." "About the backups?" I asked. "Yes. They've started panicking. Internal IT has been trying to trace files. They're afraid you still have something they missed." And they were right. See, what they didn't realize was I never kept all my cards in one place. Years ago, when I first suspected trouble, I'd started building a personal archive. Nothing illegal, nothing stolen, just copies of anything I'd been given, worked on, or flagged. A digital trail of what I saw and when I saw it. I didn't plan to use it like this. Back then, I still believed I could fix things from the inside. But when Brent got promoted and the warning signs started flashing red, I added a layer of protection. Encrypted folders, versioned timestamps, and one very special set of files, stored in a secure cloud drive tied to an email account no one knew existed. It was called Natalie Mirror Drive 93. Thursday afternoon, Evelyn and I met with the SEC team again. This time, I handed over a thumb drive. Not just any drive, this one had the real story. Dozens of procurement requests from fake vendors, backdated certifications signed after audits, payment logs that matched to ghost LLCs. But more damning than all of that, internal chats. I had screen-captured Slack conversations. One from Brent to the CFO. "Move that invoice to Q3. Don't let Natalie see it. She asks too many questions." Another. "Get rid of her before December. I'm not paying out another full pension this quarter." When the lead investigator read that line, he looked up slowly. "You were documenting this the whole time?" I nodded, because I knew this day might come. Evelyn leaned in. "There's more." Natalie uncovered connections to a defense subcontractor involved in federal work. This isn't just corporate fraud. It could cross into contract fraud. The SEC attorney's face tightened. "Then DOJ will definitely escalate." That night, Stratwell's headquarters was crawling with federal auditors. Friday morning, Brent was escorted out by federal agents. I didn't celebrate. I didn't even smile. Because by then, it wasn't about him. It was about the others. The board members who signed off on expense reports they never read. The compliance officers who kept quiet to protect their promotions. The legal team that buried my memos in internal review. They weren't innocent, they were complicit. That same Friday, I received an official letter from Stratwell's new CEO. They were offering a full reinstatement, retroactive, full pension, 5-year compensation package, and a public apology. They wanted a settlement, wrapped in flattery, a tidy bow on a messy scandal. Evelyn and I reviewed it line by line. "You could take this," she said. "Walk away. Live comfortably." "I could," I replied, "but that doesn't fix the system." Because I had one more card to play. I opened my laptop and logged into Natalie Mirror Drive 93. Then I navigated to a folder titled Unreviewed Patterns. Inside were the raw files I hadn't even shared yet. Dozens of small payments spread across 5 years. They looked like nothing on their own, but together, they formed a mosaic of deception. And one vendor name stood out. Midfield Strategic Advisors. I clicked through the PDFs, invoices, receipts. All pointed to one address, a UPS mailbox in Reston, Virginia. Owner, Harold Dyson. Yes, the chairman of the board, the same man who had called me a week ago to clear up the misunderstanding. Now he was tied to a consulting firm that billed Stratwell $1.3 million over 4 years for governance assessments that no one could verify ever happened. I sent the documents to Evelyn. She called me immediately. "You realize," she said, "this could bring down the entire board." That's the point. By Monday, the DOJ was officially involved. Charges were being drafted, subpoenas expanded. Harold Dyson resigned without comment, and the press finally caught up. Whistleblower evidence links Stratwell board to fraudulent vendors. Defense contractor scandal deepens, chairman implicated in kickback scheme. Tuesday morning, I met with Patricia Klein, the interim CEO. We didn't meet at Stratwell. I told her if she wanted to talk, she'd come to my attorney's office. She arrived, tired and cautious. "Natalie," she began, "we've accepted full responsibility for our failures, and I want to personally thank you. You saved this company, even if it didn't deserve it." She slid another folder across the table. This one didn't reek of desperation. It was clean, precise. It contained a new role: Chief Integrity Officer, board level, oversight authority, independent budget, full transparency mandate. "Help us rebuild," she said. I looked at Evelyn. She nodded once. "I'll consider it," I said. "But only if we do it right." Patricia leaned forward. "We have to." Because Stratwell wasn't just trying to survive now. They were trying to cleanse, and I had one condition. I want a whistleblower protection program. Real one, internal, confidential, independent. "Done," she said without hesitation. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every Natalie in every other company who saw something wrong but kept quiet because they were afraid. We were changing that. One folder at a time. 2 weeks after Brent's arrest and Harold Dyson's resignation, the mood inside Stratwell Dynamics shifted from denial to desperation. The story had gone national. The Wall Street Journal, CNBC, even the Washington Post ran segments headlined with phrases like, "Corruption at the core, the collapse of a defense giant. Whistleblower uncovers decade-long scheme inside Stratwell." And somehow, the face in those headlines was mine. I didn't want that, but I also didn't run from it. On Monday morning, I received an unexpected call. "Miss Price," the voice said stiffly. "This is Senator Glenmore's office. He'd like to speak with you regarding corporate accountability legislation tied to federal contractors. Would you be available this week?" I agreed. Not because I wanted a stage, but because I knew firsthand how broken the system was. But before Washington, there was one more meeting I had to attend. Stratwell's full board had been restructured. The only familiar face left was Patricia Klein, the interim CEO. The rest were replacements, appointed under federal pressure and investor demands. They asked to meet with me, in person, boardroom, no cameras, no lawyers. Evelyn was wary. "It's a trap or a peace offering. Be ready for both." I walked into the same glass-paneled room where I was once forbidden to speak. But this time, They stood when I entered. Patricia greeted me with a firm handshake. Natalie, thank you for coming. I sat at the table, directly across from the new chairman, a woman named Laura Channing, former ethics counsel for a competing firm. We've reviewed the full extent of your reports, she began, and we're not here to apologize. We're here to acknowledge. That got my attention. She continued. Stratwell failed its employees, its investors, its country, but we believe it can still serve a purpose if rebuilt correctly. The next 20 minutes were unlike any meeting I'd ever attended. There were no excuses, no finger-pointing, just data, charts, a proposed restructuring plan that incorporated whistleblower protections, transparency reforms, and a public commitment to restitution. Then Laura turned to me. And we want you to lead that effort. I didn't respond immediately. I watched them squirm just slightly, like they weren't sure I'd accept. Finally, I spoke. 3 years ago, I was told to stay in my lane. When I didn't, I was fired. Not just to save a bonus or a budget, but because I became inconvenient to a machine built on silence. Patricia nodded solemnly. And now, I said, you're offering me a steering wheel. So let me be clear, if I take it, I'm driving the bus off every cliff that covers up another lie. A pause. Then Laura smiled. That's exactly why we need you. The meeting ended with firm handshakes and cautious optimism. But I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I made a quiet stop, back at the Stratwell archives where everything began. The same archive room where I found the first false invoice, the place no one else ever checked. Inside, I found one last box. Unmarked, dusty, overlooked. Inside were paper copies, real contracts, before the digital versions had been updated. I cross-checked them against files I'd flagged years ago. And there it was, a direct signature from Harold Dyson on a purchase order for Midfield Strategic Advisors. He hadn't just approved it. He initiated it. I called Michael. You still want your smoking gun? He met me that night in a diner off the 64. I handed him the folder. He looked at it and let out a low whistle. This seals it, he said. It wasn't just oversight. It was top-down orchestration. By Friday, the DOJ expanded their case. Not just Brent, not just Harold, but 2 more board members, quiet enablers who rubber-stamped millions in shady deals. They were indicted by Monday. As for me, I stood in front of a packed room at a federal contractor ethics summit in D.C. and told my story. Not for sympathy, not for revenge, but for the next Natalie. The one who's sitting at her desk right now, wondering if she should report that sketchy invoice or question that rush job vendor nobody vetted. Wondering if she'll be believed or be the next target. I wanted her to know something. Yes, it'll cost you. Yes, they'll try to silence you. But the truth doesn't vanish. It waits, and when it finally speaks, it doesn't whisper. It roars. 6 months later, I stood at the edge of Lake Briarwood, watching the sun dip below the tree line. The water shimmered gold. The wind, soft and warm, rustled the trees in rhythmic waves. It was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that comes with absence. The kind that follows closure. Stratwell Dynamics was still standing, barely, but it wasn't the same company anymore. Not even close. After months of investigations, audits, indictments, and hearings, it had become the poster child for corporate reform. Whistleblower programs were no longer buried in HR policies. They were now mandatory, funded, and public-facing. The Department of Defense issued a formal audit reform initiative based on Stratwell's collapse. And for the first time in my life, I was invited to help draft national compliance standards for federal contractors. Me, the same woman they fired in silence, now speaking in front of rooms full of CEOs, policymakers, and legal advisors. But all of that, It wasn't the most important part. That was what happened on a Tuesday afternoon in May. I'd been invited back to Stratwell headquarters, under my own terms, of course. No press, no photo ops, just one meeting. Patricia Klein met me in the boardroom, the one they once used to fire me. But now, it looked different, brighter, simpler, stripped of pretension. She handed me an envelope. No folder this time. Inside was a single page, printed on thick paper, signed by every member of the restructured board. It read, "Effective immediately, Natalie Price is awarded full pension benefits, a 5-year compensation package, and lifetime advisory rights to Stratwell's Internal Ethics Council." I looked up, expression unreadable. "And the apology?" I asked. Patricia smiled softly and pulled out a second page. This one was shorter. Just 4 words. "We were profoundly wrong." It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rehearsed. And that's what made it real. I accepted both pages, nodded once, and left the building without another word. Because I had said everything I needed to. That weekend, my daughter Layla flew in from Chicago. She brought my grandson, Carter, and a homemade card that read, "You're a hero, Grandma." We sat on my porch, laughing, catching up. She asked if I regretted not settling early, not taking the money and walking away. I shook my head. "I didn't want a payout. I wanted a reckoning." "And you got it," she said. "No," I replied. "The truth got it. I just delivered the message." That night, I opened my laptop one last time. Not to build a report, not to send files, just to write something I'd been carrying inside me for months. It was a post on my otherwise quiet LinkedIn page. It read, "They tried to end my story 3 days before my pension vested, but they forgot something. I knew where they buried the truth, and I knew how to dig." This wasn't revenge, it was responsibility. And if you're reading this, wondering if speaking up is worth it, hear me clearly. Integrity doesn't pay quickly, but it pays back with interest. It went viral in 2 hours. Hundreds of messages flooded in from people around the world. Compliance officers, junior analysts, middle managers, all saying the same thing. "Thank you." I thought I was the only one. I'm ready to speak up. And that, more than any courtroom verdict, paycheck, or title, was what made every late night, every gut-wrenching moment, every lonely hour in the middle of this battle worth it. Because truth isn't a strategy. It's a choice. And when you choose it, really choose it, you don't just win. You change the game. 6 months after I made the call to the SEC, Brent Holloway was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison. Harold Dyson got 5. 2 more board members took plea deals. And Stratwell? It survived, but not because it deserved to. Because enough people finally decided to listen. I still get annual reports. I read them with quiet satisfaction. They're clean, transparent, humble. Every time I see the compliance section, I smile. Because buried in that section is a name, not mine, but a new role. The Natalie Price Office of Corporate Integrity. It doesn't need to have my picture, or my biography. It just needs to remind the next person in my old chair that silence is not strength. And survival doesn't mean surrender. It means standing tall, even when everyone else is looking away. And when you finally speak, make sure it's not a whisper. Make sure it's a roar.